The settings page has 6 assignable macros that can be assigned to many of the parameters we've discussed in these videos. You can assign them by clicking the drop-down menu above the knobs and choosing which parameter you want to assign it to from the list. You can then adjust the bipolar range of the macro by dragging the pointer on the circular light bulb control here. This parameter is based on the initial setting of the original assigned parameter, offsetting the range to control with the macro knob. Below the macro knob, you have the option to assign mono aftertouch to each macro for dynamic control of the effect from your MIDI controller. On the bottom pane of the settings page is the mono button. When turned on, it converts the instrument into mono mode and also allows you to set the glide time between notes using this glide controller here. Next, you have the velocity control. There are 2 buttons at the top. When the right one is active, you can set any velocity curve you'd like to the instrument for dynamic expression. When the left one is on, you have the option to set a fixed velocity amount. And that can be useful in many scenarios, for example, using it with the arpeggiator or the warp wheel, if you want to keep a consistent velocity level while effects are being automated or sequenced. Next, we have the vibrato control, which lets you choose between 5 waveforms by clicking the up or down arrow next to the waveform. You can set the depth, speed, and start delay of the vibrato with these knobs here. The up-down arrows next to the speed or delay knob allow you to toggle between them. Next is the pitch bend control, which lets you choose the pitch bend value in semitones from 0 to 12, and you can also jump to 24 beyond that. Finally, there are 2 switches below the warp wheel in the settings page. These correspond to the warp wheel and/or sequencer. The left switch is the note retrig, and the right switch is the velocity retrig. When motion has been recorded for the warp wheel using the record motion button, this control triggers the start of the recorded motion on every played note. If the arpeggiator is active, note retrig will trigger the start of the sequencer on every played note. The velocity retrig switch will allow you to trigger the warp wheel position based on velocity. If the arpeggiator is active with this control, the ARP table sequencer values will determine the warp wheel position. When both the velocity trigger and the arpeggiator is active, you will notice a new option called warp sequencer available in the arpeggiator page. This converts the arpeggiator into a sequencer for the modulation of the warp wheel.